The visor lifts just enough for the world to see his eyes. No, not just his eyes, the thing behind them, the thing that doesn't sleep, the thing that doesn't forgive. Marc Márquez walks into Jerez like a rumor of a wound that turned out to be true but not the way anyone expected. He walks in like a wolf that's been shot and is now dragging the bullet with him on purpose, so the rest of the pack can smell the lead and the blood and the still-burning powder. This isn't a man limping toward mercy. This is a man daring the entire paddock to finish what the asphalt started. Picture the scene: Circuito de Jerez, Angel Nieto, a cathedral of high-speed memory and brutal turns. The Spanish sun bleaches the tarmac white. The grandstands hum with a crowd that remembers every beautiful and terrible thing that has ever happened here. And into this arena rolls the reigning world champion, but not the pristine, polished version the PR machine might have manufactured. No, this Marc Márquez arrives with his right arm exposed, not bandaged, not hidden, not airbrushed out of the story. Raw, open, the kind of gash that makes you wonder how a man can even grip a handlebar, let alone wrestle a 260 horsepower missile through a downhill crest at an angle that defies physics. Because that's the shift, isn't it? The transformation nobody saw coming. The old Mark, the smiling assassin who buried his pain under sponsor patches and post-race cliches, he's gone. That man evaporated somewhere between the 190 km/h impact at COTA and the moment he decided to ride a scooter back to the garage instead of letting the medical center poke at him with questions and prod him with needles. The new Mark doesn't hide. The new Mark strips away the gauze and says, look at what happened, now tell me if you still want to race. So let's drag it into the light exactly as he wants. Turn 10 at the Circuit of the Americas. Downhill, a crest that unloads the suspension just as you're asking everything from the front tire. Opening practice. Lap 4 of the 2026 US Grand Prix weekend. And the Desmos Desai GP26, that beautiful violent piece of Italian engineering, decides it no longer wants to be married to the tarmac. The front folds like a man's legs giving out under bad news. 190 kilometers per hour. That's 52 meters per second. That's faster than your brain can form the word crash before the crash has already finished telling its story. He slides, not a graceful low side that lets a rider tumble and wave at the camera. No, this is a missile with a human strapped to it, 160 kilograms of carbon fiber fuel and fury aimed at a concrete barrier that has never once shown mercy. The impact sound: imagine a cathedral bell being struck by a train. That kind of violence rewrites things, not just race results, careers, bodies. The small, private map a rider keeps in his head of what his limbs are still willing to do under extreme duress. David Tardazzi, the Ducati team manager, a man who has seen more broken bones than most orthopedic surgeons, confirmed it: a massive hit to the right arm. The left hand, too, caught some of the shock. And when Márquez finally stood slowly the way a building settles after an earthquake, he did not wait for a marshal's van. He did not wave down a medical car. He found a scooter. He rode himself back to the garage. Because Marc Márquez doesn't do medical centers unless the bone is trying to escape through the skin. That's not bravado, that's a code, a dark, self-written scripture. Here's where the story turns cold, deliberate, almost surgical in its cruelty. For the remainder of the COTA weekend, Márquez kept the damage secret. Bandages, yes, but bandages could mean anything: road rash, a bruise, a scraped elbow from a minor off-track excursion. Nobody in the paddock knew the truth, not the journalists with their long lenses, not the rival riders who study every limp and wince, not even some members of his own team who were told only what they needed to know. Because Márquez's philosophy, hammered out across 6 world titles and the most catastrophic injury cycle modern MotoGP has ever witnessed, is simple: your enemy does not get to count your wounds. When he finally faced the press at Jerez on Thursday, the bandages were off, and the smile, that particular unnerving smile, was back. It was covered before and then nobody knows, he said, dead-eyed, almost amused. I didn't want to cry about it during the race weekend, didn't want to cry about it. Let that sit in your chest for a moment. A man hits a wall at 190 km/h. His right arm is shredded in ways that would send most people into shock. His neck and back are screaming so loud he probably hears them even in his sleep. And his response is to wrap it in silence, say nothing, and go back out to race. Did he crash in the sprint? Yes. Took out Fabio Di Giannantonio like a bowling ball finding its pins. Served a long lap penalty with mechanical, joyless efficiency. Came back 5th in the Grand Prix, 5th with an arm that looked like raw meat under that textile sleeve. The whole time he kept the secret like a gangster keeps a debt: patient, controlled, deadly. Now the secret is out, now the wound is visible, and walking into Jerez with it exposed is not weakness, it is a declaration. It is the wolf showing you where the bullet went in, just before it shows you where your own jugular is. But zoom out, because this is not just one crash, this is not just one arm or one bad weekend in Texas. This is a man fighting on 3 or 4 different fronts simultaneously, each one trying to drag him under, and somehow, miraculously, insanely, he keeps finding air. Let's talk about the ghost that lives in that same right arm, the one from 2020. Jerez, same circuit, different year. That grotesque, bone-splintering live television horror show where the entire sport watched his humor snap like a dry branch. That thing never fully healed. It cannot fully heal. The titanium plate, the nerve damage, the scar tissue that binds to muscle like jealous ivy, it all lives there. And then Mandalika, Indonesia, October of last year. Contact with Marco Bezzecchi. Another right shoulder injury. He missed the final rounds of his debut Ducati Lenovo season because of it. The body keeps the score, as they say, and the scorecard for Marc Márquez's right side reads like a war crimes tribunal. The bike is critical, but so am I, he told his engineers at COTA. I'm struggling, not the sanitized press conference version, not the PR polished, we need to work on a few things. This was a man looking his Ducati technicians in the eye in the Texas heat and saying out loud, I am broken, the machine is not working the way we need it to. And yet here we stand together. That is not defeat, that is a soldier doing damage assessment before the next assault. He elaborated in that quiet, almost clinical way of his. In the first laps, when the tires are new, the bike becomes more aggressive and I can't ride well at the moment. It looks like I get used to being in a position, not a natural position on the bike. And I'm just riding, not natural, not flowing, compensating, adapting his entire riding style, a style that has won him more Premier Class races than almost anyone in history, around a shoulder that no longer moves the way anatomy intended. He is improvising a championship challenge, and he is still 5th in the world standings. Which brings us to the enemy, because no revenge story is complete without one, and in 2026 the enemy wears loud orange and answers to the name Aprilia. What they're doing this season is nothing short of armed robbery in broad daylight. Marco Bezzecchi and Jorge Martin, the latter a defector from the Ducati stable which adds its own delicious poison to the narrative, currently lead the World Championship standings. The RSGP has won 4 of the opening 6 rounds, all 3 Grands Prix. 4 wins? The Italian orange machine is running riot while Ducati, the juggernaut, the untouchable empire, scrambles for upgrades like a general who just realized his maps are 3 decades out of date. Jiggy Dalligna, the wizard of Borgo Panigale, is burning midnight oil trying to understand how his rocket ship got overtaken by what was, not long ago, a footnote manufacturer. The GP26, for all its brilliance, doesn't fire up its tires the way the Aprilia can in those crucial opening laps. The RSGP pulls away while the Ducati is still cold, still grumpy, still asking its rider to wait, to be patient, to trust that the temperature will eventually come. That gap, those first 3 or 4 laps where Márquez is wrestling a cold, aggressive machine with a damaged shoulder on a body running on physiotherapy and pure psychotic will, that is the gap that has cost him a podium all season. Not talent, not desire, physics and biology conspiring at the worst possible moment. 22 points behind Bezzecchi, that's the deficit. Helped not at all by a wheel rim failure in the Thai season opener because of course the universe wanted to add mechanical sabotage to the list of indignities. 22 points, 1 race's worth of distance. And here's the thing about 22 points. Marc Márquez has come back from more with 1 good hand, a compromised shoulder, and a level of sheer derangement that most people mistake for confidence until they get close enough to see the fire behind his eyes. 22 points is not a gap, it is a target. It is a receipt he plans to cash. And now Jerez, his house, his blood track, the place where he was almost destroyed in 2020 and where he must now perform resurrection theater in front of a home crowd that still roars his name like a prayer. He admitted with that brutal self-awareness that separates him from lesser athletes, that he believed too much at COTA, believed in the track and the bike and himself. That overconfidence, that almost messianic trust in his own ability to bend reality cost him. But he doesn't make excuses. He files the crash away as data, extracts the lesson, comes back hungrier. 3 weeks between COTA and Spain. 3 weeks of physiotherapy, of training, of waking up every morning and looking at that wound on his arm, now uncovered, now a statement, and deciding what it means. It means come back harder. It means use the pain. It means show them that the scar is not a reminder of what hurt you but a receipt for what you survived. Ducati, for their part, will run tests during the race weekend. Jerez becomes a laboratory, a battlefield, and a testing ground all at once. While Bezzecchi and Martin float around the top of the standings on those orange wings, Márquez and his engineers will be engineering a comeback in real time, lap by lap, sector by sector. The sibling subplot adds its own private fire. Last year at this exact circuit, his younger brother Alex crossed the line first in the Grand Prix while Marc made an early mistake. The Márquez family dynamic, 2 brothers, different teams, the same blood, the same insane commitment to winning, burns underneath everything like a second engine nobody talks about. So here he is, the reigning world champion, fifth in the standing, no Grand Prix podium yet in 2026, a visible wound on his right arm, a shoulder that still isn't right, a machine that fights him in the opening laps, a rival manufacturer rewriting the record books. And he is smiling. That smile is the most terrifying thing in MotoGP right now, not because he is comfortable, not because he has figured it all out, but because he has been here before. Broken, bleeding, behind. And the sport has watched live in real time what happens next. The asphalt remembers, Jerez remembers, and Marc Márquez does not forget. The wolf is wounded, but the wolf is still in the paddock, and the paddock would be wise to tremble.